So now, how do you vote? Kathy's not here. Jody?
Yes.
Yes. Bob?
Yes.
Jerry? Okay. So that moves us back into zoning again. And we'll pick up right where we left off. Excuse me a second, I've got my notes out all the time. Yeah, it should be 303, 48, right?
I don't know, yeah, that's where we're at, yeah.
Yes.
So you don't have comments? I just, there was other stuff on the,
No, there's nothing else on there. Yes, there is. Jerry, would you keep this one?
Before you move on to that, what did you guys end up, what, that last motion? Did you get it straight or not?
Yes, Jerry just read it a
How
second.
did the vote go? I didn't hear.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, unanimous yes,
Yes. Except for Kathy's not here.
which was,
So what is it, Jerry?
Motion to approve modification of 110-22D subsection A, building lines from current right-of-way setback to 15 feet.
So you're changing the setback code or just giving them a
he's
modification over
gonna
that?
modify the
this
setback
application?
requirements that he can't meet. To modify that down from the 50 to 15.
what was,
That'll be a variance.
was that a motion?
Technically
No.
not a variance, but for all intents and
That was
variance is
the
just,
motion
they're
on
different legal terms, it's a modification.
making the variance request moot.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well, if you just altered the ordinance,
No, we
right?
didn't
No,
alter
no.
the ordinance, we altered its
okay. I
application to
misunderstood.
this property, is how I would refer to it. We altered the application to this building.
Okay,
Well, it does have in the notes that we had already put in a variance in there, so that's probably part of the issue too.
Yeah, I think, as Doug said, it was referred to as a variance. I think that's why that language got in there.
It's always been
Yeah.
open variance.
Okay.
All right. As we go through this, please, let's just go page by page.
I have something though before we start that, because this thing from Columbia that we all wrote is from before 303, it's 302. It says she gave out 4 copies to everybody. We got it at the last meeting, but we didn't.
Oh, yeah, because we didn't get the compressor station.
Oh, but they have it as 302, so would that be?
Oh,
before
they sent the
303?
letter, Columbia sent the wait, what?
Yeah, it's their comments on section 302. It's GKU.
Oh, no, they're not, we don't have a 302 like that. For
Maybe
compressor
it
station?
might have been an old draft.
No.
these things.
Do you have a copy?
I didn't bring my copy back with me.
302 is right, it's on page 9.
The signed original. But if, I mean, if we're going in order, that's before we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't, compressor stations got moved, they're citing an old one.
The 302 is.
302 is additional.
Additional provision.
That's what they're talking about. right?
Yeah.
So that's apparently what they're talking about.
I think they're talking specifically.
Their reference is incorrect.
That's You see, they're just, compressor stations are now 30312,
How many pages?
so, when they cited they must have an earlier
All
one.
right, well, then we'll do that.
That's why we didn't get the compressor stations last time. Yeah, we did get that letter prior, but we never got it, so, didn't get to address it. Does that make sense? Everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
So page 21. 3-8, adult-oriented establishments.
I mean, okay, we'll open up to the planning commission members first. We're on 303.8 on page 21, adult-oriented establishments.
Weren't we on junkyard when we closed the meeting?
Oh, what?
We finished junkyard.
No, we didn't. Remember I said I had more, but that's fine to, remember when you asked me?
No, I thought we had finished junkyard, but if we're,
Can you answer my question about the setback? No?
okay, what's the question?
Well, when I looked at this, with the setbacks you got now, my piece of ground is completely unusable. Literally. Okay? I'm just asking, first of all, that amounts to a taking.
I'm not following at all.
Well, if it's unusable, then it's taken, right?
I guess I'm still not, I guess you're saying the setbacks that are being proposed
Yeah,
render your property unusable.
yeah. If something were to happen and I had to redo it.
If he had a catastrophic loss.
Okay, so if it wasn't, if you were coming back through, I guess my thought would be, yeah, you would go through the same process that Dave went through. It might be a variance at that time in front of the zoning hearing board, in which you would show
And I
hardship.
can assure you, I've pissed enough people off around here that that'll never happen.
Yeah, I don't know, can I-
Which means it's a taking.
okay,
Well, I just want everybody to realize that can happen.
We put something in there, you know, due to an act of God.
That's in the law.
It's in the,
Then under cover. We'll put that stuff, and can we put that stuff in there?
What if an oil tanker truck drives through his building?
I mean, you can do it, kind of what if, but.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, what if
Catastrophic loss.
what if
There's a lot of
truck
what-ifs.
hauling well supplies tears the power line down and burns my building, which just
Like
happened
today.
today? Yeah.
There's a lot of what ifs.
There are a lot
And
of
we
what-ifs.
can't even get setbacks right. The codes we got.
So do you wanna go back to junkyards?
I have one really important question that I think we should start every meeting with, when we talk about zoning. First of all, does everybody up there have a copy? Second of all, in front of them, has everybody up there read it? You did read it, now, Lee?
Yep.
Not read it all word for word. Yeah. I couldn't memorize
I think that's first and foremost, you know what I mean? Because
We're going through it page by page.
I understand that, but the discussion, we just spent 15 or 20 minutes on Dave's setback. It shouldn't even be an issue, shouldn't be a problem. But you were in charge of this board. You didn't understand, it confused you, and we didn't even apply the codes that we have, the book that we have as a guidance, and the bylaws to this township. You're supposed to apply to that, to these, okay? So you were making a variance to something that you didn't understand, didn't apply it correctly, and, I mean, it takes us 15, 20 minutes, just something that simple, and we wanna take on zoning and add all these other regulations and stipulations, we can't even get something that simple right, or apply it right, you know what I'm saying? Like,
But we've gone through all this, we've gone through it page by page, line by line.
and there's a
Parentheses,
lot of,
pictures, commas, and everything else.
Lot of
They tried to get it
problems
as
and-
straight as possible.
lot of what ifs.
Yeah, you know, you're gonna have what ifs, you just have to work unless you run into it, just like with this variance. Maybe we'll go back and take a look at that and see what we can do to make it better. Yes, Dan?
But most of the corrections come from here, not from up there, from what you read, now that you said you read the whole thing. No, you don't have any questions, it all sounded good to you?
I have a lot of questions with it, but a lot of the questions I have been taken care of. as we go through it. I mean, what is better to do than to have public comment as we go through it?
Absolutely.
And that's what we're doing. And after we get through with it, what happens after we get through with it? We send it back to the supervisors. Start all over again. It goes out for public comment again, then it goes out to a public hearing. So there's a chance, there's 2 more chances to try to get this right after we get done.
Well, the point is
Yeah,
to
but
do it
the
right
thing
the first
is-
time.
The thing is,
You can't do it right the first time. You can do your best
You
to
can
try to get it. We're not God. We can't get it perfect the first time.
Didn't
We
say
can come as
perfect.
close as we can. Yes, you are asking for it to be perfect.
No, doing it right, do right, or say or don't do
Okay,
it.
Lee.
No, it's not the same thing.
the only thing that bothered me about the second time it went, when it went to the county, they didn't even look at anything that, any part of that. All they did was stamp it
That
and
surprised me,
send it
dear.
back.
Yeah, I agree with you
That,
100%.
that shocked me more than us out here as a community trying to find out what to make it better.
They did.
But when they
wrote
had
something.
no qualms of anything that we sent them, I'd like to send them something really silly and see what they face stamp it, and then send them a good one, because I'll bet you they would stamp them both.
That'd be fun to do that. But I don't know how we could do it.
It'd be a shame, though,
Oh, yeah.
that that's the way our government works in county level.
Tim?
I just was pointing out that I wrote a note last time, Michael,
Yep.
that you were to, I just wrote this down, to ask if the junkyard was, if the licensed by the state kind of over, you know what I mean, like, did
Yeah,
you
we
find
did look
anything
into
about
that.
that?
Yeah, we did look into that. Section 451 of the PA code talks about,
They are licensed by the state.
yeah, that's
to answer
essentially
your
what,
question.
yeah, that's what it says, is that they are licensed, they have to be licensed.
Yeah, I couldn't, I just wrote that down, and that's what I wanted.
No, yeah, that
I
was,
just thought that was
but
the
yeah, we
first
did,
thing.
we looked into that and they are.
They're not all licensed.
It has to be up to a certain,
Depends on the
certain
highway.
distance to the highway.
Depends on which highways that they're located next to.
That's at 451 that came.
Yeah, that'll list what needs to be who and what needs to be licensed through.
This is that one that came from, the CUs or Doug Teagarden desktop, okay.
Good reference, is that 450, I think it's
Yeah.
451.
So not everybody's licensed in the state that has a junkyard?
No, it talks
To
about
operate
whether or
on
not
the
it's a federally funded highway. Anybody within 1,000 feet of a federally funded highway. US Route 40, State 70. I don't know if there's any other ones, but none of those two are definitely,
Well, Matthews have one, and they're not
they have a state license.
along, yeah,
I don't know whether they're licensed that one,
I'm
but
sure Strauss does too.
well, they probably would be,
They'd
because,
have to, they're within 1,000 feet.
yeah,
Huh. So it's about cosmetics.
it's a lot, mostly about cosmetics. Talks about fencing and screening and
Yeah.
a lot of other things.
Okay, we're ready to move on here. What do we want? What's next?
Do you want to start
Yeah, I
with
had,
junkyard? All right, go ahead.
I didn't think we finished it. Lee, I have to disagree with you. I'm not asking to be perfect. Perfect would be thrown in the trash.
Okay, let that go. Let's
Yes.
just go with
No,
what we
you
talked.
addressed
No.
me. All I'm saying is, do it right or don't do it.
Okay.
That's
We'll do
the
the best.
perfect example. If you don't even understand what you're trying to enforce upon us, or, you know what I mean? That setback is the perfect example. We can't
Good,
get
we've
something
gone
that simple
over
right.
that.
How are we gonna
Let's
get this
move
right?
on. We understand it. We're trying to correct it.
But you didn't understand it. That's the point. To Darren's
But the
point.
point is, I have learned people around me that do understand and can explain.
But you're in charge. You
So
were going
what?
to-
I'm in charge. I got appointed as being chairman. I'm
Okay.
trying to do the best I can with it. Why are you arguing with me? I'll be glad when you are sitting up here trying to do something. Of course, no, I won't go into the fact, you didn't put in an application to be a supervisor, did you?
No, I didn't. But you did, and you're in charge of this board.
And
if you
I'm trying to
cannot
do my
get
best,
that-
and you're not letting me do it.
I am.
No, you're not.
What- Okay.
That's why I
If-
have these people here.
Lee.
I'm not gonna argue
If
this
I
with
can-
you.
Well, then quit arguing.
Yes, quit arguing.
Okay, I'm not arguing. My point is, if I didn't bring that up, you would have put it through just the way you had it, and it was incorrect. And then you leave the township open for a lawsuit on down the road. It's about looking out for the best interest of the township and keeping them out of court and out of lawsuits. So had I not brought that up, it would have gone through just the way it was. It didn't come from up there, it came from back here, just like Darren said. Once it was brought up and discussed, you found out, gee, I was actually right. Imagine that. So I'm not arguing with you, I'm saying do right or don't do it. And if you can't get something that simple right, and can't understand that something that simple, you shouldn't be in charge of that board, and you sure as hell shouldn't be a supervisor.
Amen. You done?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, what do you want to talk about junkyards?
Well, as I remember what happened last meeting, I also brought up and showed that this whole, I think this is sort of where we
What
ended the meeting.
page are you at, what number?
I'm on the whole thing, like,
I think it starts on 19 or 18.
18.
what we had talked about, the question that I brought up, and it's sort of what we ended the meeting on, as I recall, and never got answered, was this whole zoning thing from the get-go, when we were out in that gym, when we had a whole gym full of people, it got sold, for lack of a better term, that anything and everything already in existence is grandfathered, and it will not affect anybody as it stands, the way it is, only for the future, for all the influx of new business and, you know, we want to regulate and put guidelines down for the future of our township, how we want it to develop and mold. And it came up in the last meeting, that's not the case at all. That's a perfect example about, that's where we're at on the junkyard thing and the license. And I asked Michael about the licensing, and that I would then have to get a license, Eddie would have to get a license, and anybody, and it's inconsistent. One place it says it doesn't even have a number of junk vehicles, one place it says 1, and one place it says 2. And I said, brought up that,
And then you told everybody that they would have to have a permit to sell their used car.
I didn't tell anybody anything.
No?
No, under,
You told us last week.
under automobile, the question was raised under automobile services. Subsection D requires automobile services, which I think applies to JD, if I'm remembering correctly, that you have to comply with the junkyard regulations. That's how it got brought up. My notes here have delete subsection D, so that automobile services don't have to comply with the junkyard issues. If that's what gets done, then your questions and concerns about having to have a junkyard, really, you know, applying to all of these different matters with the junkyard, those become moot, is my understanding.
okay,
That doesn't mean there aren't issues with the junkyard that need to be amended, I understand that, but to answer your question about the license and then having to, you know, you can't have things, certain areas based on, if you eliminate that reference that they had in subsection D to this, that solves a lot of your questions, is my understanding.
yeah, is that stricken in the new version?
Well, I
Taken out?
haven't taken it out yet, I haven't made any
We're
changes.
still working on the old because we told him not to reprint.
Instead of doing a new
Yeah.
draft.
No, that's what I'm saying, do you have that?
I have-
noted?
yes,
Yeah,
I-
it does have it crossed
Yeah,
out.
I have D crossed out under automobiles, so that would alleviate a lot of your concerns. And going back and looking at it, the junkyards, I think the idea behind the setbacks and talking to a couple people and kind of getting an idea, that having a little bit more of a setbacks, where you're saying I can't park cars in certain areas, I think the idea behind it is an automobile service area, you know, sales and that are not likely dealing with the debris that could happen from a junkyard. I think that's why there are a little bit more stringent regulations here that might not necessarily, or shouldn't necessarily apply to an automobile service. So that taking out D, I think, answers a lot of your issues.
Because if that's the case, using Eddie, for example, do you mind if I use it for an example? If that goes through the way it is, which you can't, where is that at? You can't work on any vehicle within 20 foot of the right of way, he's out of business. Because the right of way on 40, and again, I'm not a township official, so I don't know what the right of way is. It's what? I thought it was
66 foot.
66 feet. So if it's 20 feet, let me find that, so I don't, it's in here somewhere. It says something about, okay.
But again, to answer the question, he's already operating there, he is grandfathered in. If something were to happen, and he were to come back and have to build, I understand that, what he would ask for with that is a hardship waiver, based on the terrain of the land, based, just like Dave came in and asked for, you take into consideration, it would not be economically feasible to have him backfill that whole area, is my understanding of what we were talking about previously. So he would come in with those set of facts, present it to the board, and hopefully have that granted. I understand that's not a guarantee, and I understand, you know, you have concerns about that. That would be the procedure. That would only be if you were expanding your use or trying to do a different use. If you're just coming back and doing what you're doing within that footprint, you don't need any additional approvals. Does that make sense?
That does.
But yes, there is a
But is
possibility.
it articulated in the ordinance as such?
Well, no, an ordinance wouldn't deal with the law of.
With what you
non-conforming
just
use.
said, is what I'm saying. Is that documented in that fashion?
That's the law of non-conforming use, no, but this wouldn't address non-conforming use. What he would do is, if for something, he tore it down and wanted to build a new building, he would go through I'm assuming this is a conditional use, I don't know, he'd go through a conditional use, he wouldn't be able to meet X, Y, and Z. He would then have to ask for a waiver, and he would have to explain why he can't meet X, Y, and Z. So to that extent, that procedure is laid out here. But the actual law that's applied, no, you don't incorporate the specific law into this. But that's to try and answer the question. So there is a possibility of something, if you were to tear it down and want to come back, or if you were wanting to expand, you would have to get a waiver to tick off some of these boxes, it sounds like. But if you were staying within your footprint and doing what you're doing and you're already there, if you're already operating within that, and your building's already located within that, you're not being told not to.
That sounds all well and good, except for, since the last meeting, which was on a Tuesday, on Thursday, I got papers violation, and then I understand that Eddie got papers before that I didn't know about.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm not sure.
For code enforcement, from the code enforcement department, under junk vehicles and junkyard stuff. So, again, the whole grandfather thing's.
Well, that tells me you're already in violation of the
What's
current. If they're citing you, they're saying you're in violation already of what's on the books. That has nothing to do with what's being grandfathered in.
Well, it does, because it's that line that relates automobile services with junkyards. This is about junkyards. I'm not a junkyard. Period.
I don't know how the code enforcement cited you.
Got this 2 days after our meeting. Exactly as I said, that I brought up that night.
Yeah, it was written on a Wednesday, I thought it works on Monday.
I can't answer that.
It was dated April 12th, which was the date of the meeting. That was the date of our meeting, last meeting, correct?
It was the 11th.
I thought it was the
Here.
12th.
Wouldn't that be considered selective
Wednesday.
enforcement, Michael?
Honestly, I don't deal with the code enforcement. That could be something raised. I don't know. I mean, that is a defense that could be raised in court. I'm not familiar enough with the enforcement around here, but that is
But
that is a legit defense.
yeah, I brought that up that night, and I said, I even brought up about targeting, selective enforcement, so on and so forth, and the next day this was generated. So, you know what I mean? Punctuation point made there.
But again, not getting to the selective enforcement, whatever you're being cited for, that's already on the books. So I guess let's address what we're trying to do now. I can't answer that. I can't help you with that right now. But what we're doing right now is what will be on the books moving forward. That's all I can.
Okay, so it says, A2 says, it shall be unlawful for any person to possess junk vehicle. Is that how you spell possess, P-O-S-S-E-S? Looks funny.
A2, okay.
Yeah, it's page 18, I'm sorry. 303.6A, paragraph 2, says to be unlawful for any person to possess junk vehicle. It doesn't have a number. But there's two other places that there's a contradiction.
I would. What's my power? I need my power back. Good thing, you know where we go.
I'm trying to find Michael,
Okay.
there's, apologize for the delay. There's. There's so many different versions and papers and stuff of this, that don't know which one's right and which one's not, but, somewhere, I read, okay, so that, my point is, there's no number there.
No, I think the way I read this is that a junk vehicle.
Right, somewhere else it says
In
That's in
here.
more than one.
Yeah, in here, there was a conflict. In here, it said one at one point, and it said more than one.
And in one place it says two.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to find.
yeah,
So
okay.
you got all that, you're on it?
Well, what is gonna be incorporated in the zoning ordinance will repeal what's in the code book right now. So,
What's it gonna be?
well, as it reads right now, it would just be, if you have a junk vehicle, you're in violation unless you go get a license for it.
Okay, but
Is
is that
what,
what,
is what this says.
And
that
what's
was in the
defined as a junk
1,000
vehicle is
highway
anything unlicensed.
No, that's anywhere in the township, according to this. If people want that to be, have one, and then multiple ones you have to get, or whatever it is, that's what we would be needing.
That's probably 50% of the township.
That's why, I don't think you should change it, I think you should still leave it to be one. Because if you have a child who wants to build something,
that they're in the
you know, like
process.
I did, I started with my first vehicle with a frame. You're taking away the ability to be able to do that with one. Now, one is not an eyesore of a road, that's just one. I don't think you,
So you're
as
saying,
a board, I don't think you
so
should
you're
take
saying,
one.
it's- you're saying that more than one, not one, more than one.
but not greater than two?
Yeah,
Less than-
Michael, I know you're not from here.
Yeah, no, I
But to
understand.
Eddie's point, the demolition derby
Yeah.
is the biggest revenue generating
Well, you think you
event
need at least to have
in
two.
this township. Is it fair?
Okay.
There's a lot of derby cars around here.
Well, again, this says what, you can get a license for it.
Okay, so you're gonna pay $250 a year for license to run a derby that,
I don't
That you have to
You
pay to
can
do.
Is that what the license is for?
The winning car is
So
proudly
then that
displayed
needs to
on
be
the
amended.
front
I would think that
lawn.
would need to be amended.
What part needs to be amended?
Well, let's
The
see what they
resolution
come
of
up with as
fees
a board for a
to,
second.
to allow
What they
that.
come up with. Because I'm sure there's a logical answer for what they can.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. The spirit behind this is so that you just don't have a ton of what they deem to be junk vehicles in people's yards or, you know, on this, wherever it might be throughout the township to keep it looking nice, is essentially what the idea behind it. So what this does is it requires you, if you're gonna have one, if you're gonna be working on one, as it is now, even if you're gonna be working on one, you've gotta come down. I understand what you're saying is right now, it's not really, the fee does not reflect those different types, so that might be something that just needs to be amended with the resolution of fees. It might just be a non-fee, you just have to come down and get permission, or not even get permission, to just put the township on notice, hey, I'm gonna be working on rebuilding a car, I'm gonna be working on this, it's not gonna have it's gonna meet the definition of junk vehicle, but I'm gonna be working on it, okay, it's good, so you don't get a letter from the code enforcement officer. Or if a code enforcement officer is coming through and says, hey, do you have a license for that? You say, no, you gotta, fill out the paperwork, and then you're good to go. That would be the idea behind this, the way I'm reading this.
I don't want to be under an HMO. And all of this talk is so homeowners organization.
This is already on the books.
That-
I mean, I understand your concerns, but these regulations are taken from what's already on the books in Donovan. So I think,
It's been on the books for 30 years and it's never been enforced.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, what's in here, I understand you're saying you don't want all of a sudden to be under this, well, this is already in place.
Well, there's the spirit of the law and there's the letter of the law. And the letter of the law right now killeth. And we are resenting it.
I understand that.
I mean, it's that simple. And that's all I have to say.
Well, now, you never addressed my question about the Joe Sixpack. He's done with this car and he wants to sell it. He lets the sticker expire, he don't renew the license because he's not driving, he got another car. he wants to put it in his front yard and slap a for sale sign on the front, he is in violation.
Correct.
Say it's to spend $250 to sell his $250
Well,
car.
no, the last thing that Michael said was
You
that.
gotta come down and beg them for a permit to sell your
No,
car.
I don't
He
even
didn't say
think- I don't
beg,
even
he
think
just
that you
said,
are- I
even
don't-
if it was a non-feed, just, yeah, when you get into information. stuff,
But I guess,
get out
but
of
what I'm getting at is that right now, as you said, that these are on the books now.
And
And
they're-
unless it's brought to the township's not in the business of going, or I know. I know myself, I'm your view of that. But the idea is that the township not have, the code enforcement officer typically reacts when there's someone that calls and has a complaint about something, or is brought to their attention.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not
all
actively
named
out.
anonymous.
There's the
Okay.
next
I
subject.
understand it, but what I'm saying is, that under this hypothetical, if that Joe Sixpack has a car on the side of the road that they're trying to sell, and someone, for whatever reason, is upset with him, or is upset with it there, they call the township. The code enforcement officer comes out, tells them, hey, you just gotta go, fill out the paperwork, and you're good to go. I guess my idea is that intrusive or that much of an annoyance to be able to give the township some teeth, that if you do have someone else that is abusing that and has 6, 7 different cars that are lined up on the road or deteriorating and causing, an issue, the township now has teeth to do that. That's what the balancing act is.
No, wait. According to you, five seconds ago, according to you, the township already has a team. So what is it?
But what I'm understanding right now is that you guys want to
You
take away those
said
teeth.
4 or 5 times, this is already on the books.
Yeah, and we're talking about how you want it moving forward. The feedback I'm getting from you right now is that shouldn't be in there at all. So I'm saying
That sounds good
there's
to
a
me.
balance between giving the township some teeth and just having people being
So
able to
in
move
other
on
words,
with
they
life.
have no teeth now?
No, they have teeth.
I have a question.
Well, let's finish up with this.
Okay, so we're gonna give them more teeth?
No, that's what we're trying to figure out.
It's not fair and reasonable to make individuals adhere to rules, regulations, and guidelines